Good evening, everybody. Let's head over to Collectively Rewilding. All right. Here we are in Collectively Rewilding. I'm really excited about everything tonight. It's all lined up finally, and I have everything the way I would like it to be when we're getting ready to do a class. So that is, again, part of it, learning how to roll with the punches. If you don't have something perfect, still working on getting out that content, right? And so tonight we're going to talk about a whole bunch of different topics. They are all kind of centered around that basic topic of a healthy environment, healthy soil, healthy interactions between plants is going to be a big topic for tonight. So where we're at is in that garden planning stage, right? We have about, 3.5 months. The first frost will depend on where you are, and you find that out very easily. And for example, we have, let's do California, and I believe it's San Bernardino, California, where Cami Larson is residing. And then you would say latest frost. And then date is fine, search that. They'll have your answer here in the generated AI information. I would still check that. It's pretty close to accurate most of the time. I've definitely found some errors. Let's see here. They're showing it the last 32 being February 10th, 30% even in December. It might already pretty much be past the last frost there. And that's where you're going to kind of check with the AI and the actual website, this being the National Gardening Association, a relatively trustable site. You might want to look for something that's specifically in San Bernardino. You have the Old Farmer's Almanac, another great example. We're not really finding anything. Here's the University of California. So that's a little bit more localized, right? Coming from that area. All of those things really matter for where you are, each one being very different. If we take, I'm not sure exactly what part of Alabama, but let's go overall Alabama. And April 1st, it looks like, maybe as early as March 30th. So quite a bit later, right? Even though Alabama is warmer than where I'm at in Utah, that is still going to be later than where Tammy is in California, all right? Continuing on, we've been doing reviews of free planners and one for-profit planner so far. I thought we'd go over those a little bit. It is really, really interesting to actually tear it apart. I've learned a lot about very specific ways to increase the production and health of your plants, right? So we pulled this all up. Let's just go fully into our featured section here in the Rewilding Community Feed. We'll click See More so that we can see all of the different things within that featured section. All right, and we're going to go down a little bit back to the original article that holds all 4 of the different planners that we're going to review. All right, 2 free and 2 for cost, but not expensive, very affordable still, free and low cost garden plans. All right, and that's coming from Fine Gardening. You have their article here. You can pull that all up and go over each of them. I've pulled it up so many times. I'm worried it's not going to allow us to. Let's try it. Okay, they're still going to allow it. There were issues. This site, everything worked except, where did it go? Maybe they've realized that it was broken. I guess it was Launch Gallery. This did not work. You had to get a special downloading service and all of these extra steps, and I did everything that you were supposed to, and it still didn't work. So I would just ignore that entirely, give it at least 3 months to a year if you ever want to try it. It did sound interesting. It does not work currently. Continuing on though, you have these 2 free: Vegetable Gardening Online, Gardener Supply Company, and then smartgarden.com. The only one I haven't worked on yet is, oh no, one of these didn't work. This area here didn't work. And that may be what I'm thinking of. They all look so similar, right? Because they're different garden planning sites. Then this one here, this had a lot more problems than I initially thought. We'll go over all of this, but I felt like something happened. No, this was the first for-profit. They did have a free trial, but this should not be listed under free. This should be listed under for-profit. Now, grow veg, then I haven't done. Okay, that's right. So there's actually 5. I was thinking there were 4 because they've listed it under free. So I guess we have 2 more to go. I have not done Mother Earth News. No, that's still something. Not quite making sense. And now I've lost my place. Here maybe? No. Oh, I think we're over here. That's why. Okay. Grow Veg. I've checked that one out. And Mother Earth News. It's not adding up in my brain. I have reviewed all of these though. And so one is the for-profit. Right. Okay. That's where the second one is. Okay, so I have 2 more to review. I have this one here and Mother Earth News. I thought there was only Mother Earth News. This is one of my favorite natural brands. I really am looking forward to it. So maybe my brain just skipped over that I do have 1 more to review before getting there. Now, a part of the confusion is in their article, they have this listed as a free service. You can explore a demo garden, but it's very limited. They have so many more plant options if you pay for their service, and it's not going to save your garden, a bunch of different things, right? So this article is listing it here as a free. It's not. I wouldn't even list it here. They've changed it since this article. They definitely have. So that is a for-profit and part of the confusion there. All right, now that we've figured out where we are here, that's really good to know. I put them all together for you on a list because that did just get kind of overwhelming already. And the first site that is listed has a bunch of different options for it. So I put it together as a list for you here. There were quite a few problems with this site overall. It is the free site. I really think that it can be used, but it is limited. They are not correct at all in their spacing. They have way too many plants in probably about half of their suggestions, and it's not something that you want to do. Overcrowding, I definitely overcrowded the last area we were in. The soil was so poor, I didn't know what would and wouldn't take. And the first time around, it was all right, but once those plants seeded, it became a mess. And that's all right in that space because it was healing soil that really wouldn't even been classified as soil. So in that one instance, it wasn't a real detriment. You're going to be starting over as soon as you get that soil worked into some sort of health, right? However, overcrowding is not ever what you want to do when you're trying to produce fruits and vegetables. and they really overcrowded their material. So in all reality, I would not recommend the vegetable gardening online. And I've got too many tabs open where they all look the same. But this vegetable gardening online, I may have already X'd out of it. It is just not a very good garden planner, all right? Gardener's Supply Company had some really good ideas. They were very overcrowded. And I think I just X'd out. Let's just go look at the articles and follow through that way here. This is the first garden planning site. That's the one that just really overcrowds as many as 32 plants in 1 square foot of space. Not a good idea. Then you have your second garden. At first, I was really excited about this, and that's what you see here. They've got all these pre-planned gardens. They have such glorious ideas, salad bar gardens, things like that. It's really fun. But when you look at it, and I had already known that you don't want to put things like potatoes with tomatoes because they're both such heavy feeders, right? And there's a lot of mixing like that between brassicas with nightshade plants and just a huge variety of their mixtures. They need to have space between them. Even their cucumber farm, which again, it was really a cute idea. And we'll go ahead and pull that up so that you can see it. They have so many that it would be ridiculous to try to go through them. I do think going through them and looking it over, seeing where it inspires you, and then coming back and actually looking at the plants that I put together for you that should and should not ever be combined, you can get some really neat ideas. They suggest this cucumber garden. Cucumber farm is what they call it. And we'll open that in a new link, or a new tab, excuse me. It's a trellis in an A shape or a teepee shape there. And the problem is they recommend putting multiple varieties of cucumber on here. But cucumber is one of the plants that will cross-pollinate. So if you put out several varieties, they're going to get all mixed up, and you're not going to end up with any of those that you wanted. You're going to end up with some mixed up variety in between. So the actual frame you can utilize in a smaller variation if you have enough space to spread them out. Now, it's a good amount of space. When you are looking up squash as an instance, you needed at least 800 feet, a quarter of a mile between squash varieties if you don't want them to blend. That blew my mind. So you probably are going to be limited to one type of squash. There are some separations in there. A few of them that we consider squash won't quite cross-pollinate, all right? And I'm still building that list for you. There is a lot going on when we're putting these gardens together that many of us don't realize. So again, cross-pollination will happen between cucumbers, but not between cucumbers and squashes. Then it will happen between squashes. It will happen between melons, but we call watermelon melon. However, it will not mix with your cantaloupe or your honeydew. However, your cantaloupe and your honeydew can mix, right? So all of these different things are what we want to take into account when we're planning our garden. If you're a beginner, I would simply recommend looking over the list of things that shouldn't be grown quite right next to each other. You don't have to separate nightshades and brassicas a quarter of a mile, as an example. It's much closer. You are wanting to keep them several feet away, right? You want to keep onions several feet away from pretty much everything. Marigolds and calendula, the same thing. Those are actually two different plants. It's a common myth that they're not. They are two different plants, calendula and marigold. If you want to use the healing properties of calendula, you can't just utilize your marigolds and get the same effects that you would from true, oh my goodness, and now the word is eluding me. Calendula. All right, so those are things that you want to just bear in mind. And they are good for pest control. These things that they recommend, onion, garlic, calendula, marigold, but you need to keep them away from your other plants. they should be surrounding or maybe in between if you do raised beds and you have a walkway. Perhaps right in the middle, you could do a little circle and have a calendula or a marigold, which would still be 2 or 3 feet away from your other plants, right? Something along those lines, or some onion plants or garlic plants, anything like that. All right, continuing on. Really interesting and yet limited use gardens from the second review. Now we are going to go up just a little bit. Some really great things that Tammy Larson found, a lot of time sensitive things, a lot of fun. Drying fruits and vegetables, that's something we'll get into later, but it was something that Tammy found, so I wanted to throw it up there. Really great piece, as are all of these different things that have been found. Again, major research expert there, Miss Tammy Larson, found just some amazing items. And also, Anita Giesler has found quite a few, but I wasn't giving credit. And I also don't look at them right away. They're not posted in here, so it's a little harder to give credit in that fashion. All right, so jumping into the review of the second free planner. Oh, I thought we had already done that. Excuse me. The third free planner, as they called it, it is not a free planner. And let's just edit that and say the third. All right. I do really like this planner. It is affordable. If you're going to get it for more than 3 months at $15, you really want to go with the annual plan at $40. If you do even 2 3-month periods, you are already paying $20 more. So either use it very well for 3 months and cancel it, or get a whole year for $40, right? 15 to 40 bucks. Pretty affordable. Really, really useful. I am going to pull this one up. I want to show you all some of the example gardens from some of their members. These are brilliant, everyone. And it is so amazing how much variety and how very specific you can make these gardens. And where did I find that? This is the actual location so that you can explore the demo garden and join. The demo garden was great, but again, limited. Okay, to let me click that. No, that's not what I want. Maybe it was in pricing. You can explore the demo garden, but that really, it was limited and it really just didn't give a very good overview of what they could do. When you look at the examples provided by other members who have fully joined the site, it is really quite intricate. Give it a second. It always takes longer with Zoom when you have so much bandwidth being used for the live, or it might not let me because I've already used this twice to explore it for you guys. So we'll see. Aha. Okay. All of this is excellent. I didn't quite agree with everything they had in their arrangements, but I really liked the potatoes that they chose. I'm actually going to choose these potatoes for my garden. Then when you got into the overall area, exit demo, maybe it'll give me some further information. Oh goodness, these websites, they are a maze inside themselves. I don't think I was watching a video. It's almost like they've changed their website too, which isn't that surprising considering that it's getting ready to be the new year. That's really frustrating. Let's try one other thing. Let's try sign up and see if that's different than just the no. All right. Well, it looks like they've changed their website, and unfortunately, it isn't as good. They had all of this, and then they showed how members have kept track of their own gardens, and there were some really beautiful layouts. I don't think I clicked any of these internal links. It was just right here amidst this material. And they really shouldn't have taken it out. Let's see if a tour will do it. No, that's the video. I think they've added this tour. So it's unfortunate. They really, you can build walls in it. You can add very realistic looking backgrounds. You can make it more cartoon. You can make it very realistic. You can utilize what looks to be almost pictures of the plants, or you can use an artist representation of the plants. You can vary that. You can go back and forth between it. You can really get intricate with these. And we are going to probably sign up for this one. I'm going to do a review of the other two, just compare them, see which is the one that we'll go with as Collectively Rewilding, and we'll do an in-depth review of this. I'm really, really disappointed that we can't show you the video, or not the video. It was like a slideshow of different garden plans. And oh my goodness, if you're creative and you spend the time to learn how to do the tools, you can really make it look like your backyard. There were realistic curved lines that were being used. They turned those into fences or not. It was up to each individual, right? It was just really amazing, the variety there. So I do think that this is an excellent website. They are recommended, even though Mother Earth News has their own for-profit garden planner. They also endorse this garden planner. Just great, great information. All right, really amazing. So there's the beginning and a lot of information. I know all of this is here through these reviews, and it is a little easier to find if you head over into Sustainable Organic Soil Regeneration, where we host this class from. You'll land on course material, and it's all in the second unit here with planning for your garden, right? Late winter to early spring. We get started even earlier. It's just now winter, but this is why we want to explore all these different options and give you all the chance to explore these different options as the season progresses, so that when that soil starts forming up, you're rearing and ready to go, plan in hand, you know, what seeds you want, what seedlings you want, maybe where your pH is even already in your soil. I will be trying to do things like that as well. There's so many things I'd like to do with you, having just moved in. Some of them will and some of them won't happen this go round. Of course, this is something that is just going to be ongoing. So if we don't manage it before we put out some of the other things that we'll actually be doing this year, we won't be putting in as many of the plants as digging into the structures. So that's a great segue into the photos for what the garden plan currently looks like for here in Collectively Rewilding. I believe I downloaded those. Let me just check. Okay, no, I did not. Give me 2 seconds and I will download those for you. All right. Here we go. And now heading into the picture of what it will look like when we get to the point that we are, oh, that's not what I meant to do. I apologize. Let me make this smaller here and punch out of the way as possible. Okay. This is the backyard, and I had already flipped this around, but it does need to rotate again. There we go. All right. So here is our house. The true north is about this direction. It's not on the traditional grids that so many towns are, and I love that because we have an almost fully southwest facing front porch, which is also going to get turned into a modified greenhouse and then have shade for in the summer, which not only will provide extra growing room for myself, it will increase the efficiency of our heating and our cooling systems throughout the year. So it's a really great benefit, but that's on the front of the house. So here we are looking back towards the northwest, northwest, west, northeast, and then east over here. That's going to really affect the amount of sunlight that I get. I really get a large portion of the backyard with sunlight more throughout the year than you do when you have a completely south-facing, north-facing backyard being the north. Still, most people prefer that, and absolutely I do as well. However, this is even better. I will get just a little bit more sunlight into my backyard than would be in a lot of more cardinal direction located places, right? Now, I'm going to have several plants that I'm going to add in. There is a sand cherry right about here that will be maintained in this bund. We've talked about that in a different class. When we do the scraping for that, we'll pay extreme attention to the sand cherry and leave a lot of that alone. So it's going to be a very modified bund, but it's still going to have the back area that will catch the rainfall and the snow and retain that water better. And it will have some removal of the soil to create that bund at the back, lightly scraping, getting a little deeper as it goes back towards the deeper part of the curve. There's a mulberry tree that's volunteered here, and we'll be keeping that. There is a almost dead willow tree that's right about here. Those are huge trees. It really was a very bad placement anyway. It would have damaged the house, especially the patio, and just been a kind of constant problem being this close. So it's going to have to be removed, and it's already started to die. So that'll be a lot more simple process. Then you have the almond tree that we're going to add. That needs anywhere from 15 to 20 square feet. So there's definitely going to be a good amount of square feet between our patio and our shed or little barn shed over here. Is so cute. One of the people that helped us move said, "Oh my gosh, you have a barn?" Well, it does look a little like a barn. It is a shed. And we're also going to add an olive tree right here. There's a pavilion that needs some tender loving care. It's trying to fall apart, but it's right now still salvageable. It would have been nice if we could have done it this fall, but there was just no way. And we'll work on that this spring and summer, get that taken care of as quickly as possible so that it deteriorates less than it would if we just let it stand there until it fell down, right? But right next to that, we'll have an olive tree. Again, it needs a good 15 to 20 feet. So it's got to have area. The pavilion will have this 6.5-ish square feet right here. The same over from the Walpini. It will be a little bit tight, but it will be above the roof. And with this just being a pavilion, it should work out pretty well. It's not a major structure. It's an open air structure. And while we may have to trim a few branches, it shouldn't cause us too much difficulty. Now, you may be wondering, what is a walipini? A walipini is a greenhouse that is begun underground, anywhere from 4 feet to 6 feet being about as deep as they generally go. And then you place a structure, a roof over it that's just glass, and that would be depending on how tall you want it with the ground. we're going to find out how much we're able to dig into the ground here. This is a very, very gravelly area. Luckily, we have folks that are going to bring up their, oh my goodness, and I can never remember, it's a backhoe, yay. They're going to bring up the backhoe, and that again is something that we've talked about, where I should be able to get 75% reimbursed for any of the costs, including the gas mileage, wear and tear, the time that's labor intensive. With there being structures all around, we definitely want somebody that knows what they're doing with the backhoe. There's this fence that's right here to the side. So all of that is going to be dug out with the intention of an enclosed structure through hopefully as many reclaimed windows. They're always doing all this construction around here. We're going to try to do it thoroughly through reclaimed windows from demolished homes. That's saving us money and working towards repurposing for the sustainability element, right? That's a huge, huge part of what all of this encompasses: building healthy soil and water retention so that you don't have to use as many ounces of water for your watering. And we work in natural pest repellents, like we've talked about, appropriately so they're not damaging the other plants, where we're improving the soil quality, and that also protects the plants. All of these different things that will utilize less resources, no chemical fertilizers or pesticides, fungicides, herbicides, all these sides, right? Well, that means death. Not really what I'm trying to apply to a garden. That's interesting that we ever thought that chemicals would be the answer to better, healthier food, right? This is completely the opposite. Working with nature to utilize what's already here and increase the health without having to bring in a tremendous amount of outside resources or chemicals, no excess water, all of these different things. You see the berms here? I've actually increased these. They will be out about another foot here. And then the swale itself, where you dig down to create that water retention, will be about another foot as well. So these are really about 3 feet, coming out to about here. Same on this one, coming out to about here. And that will still be filled with plants and perhaps the idea of their cucumber farm from that second site that was reviewed, broken down through a couple of different places throughout the garden, maybe one on this berm, one on this berm here, for a couple of different varieties of cucumber. However, again, with that 1/4 mile, that was with squashes. I'm guessing that may still be too close. However, squash are very well known for how well they cross-pollinate. Each one will have its own level. So it may or may not be able to be different varieties of some of these plants that we would like to try different varieties of. Having said that, some plants do better when there are other varieties that they can cross-pollinate with. The olive tree and the almond tree being excellent examples of that. We've also talked about community gardening here in this class, even though it's so new. These are all topics that just go so well together. And we're already building a small community here that may enable us to do some things we wouldn't be able to do with just our single plot. For instance, our next door neighbor over here to the west is considering getting another almond and another olive tree of a different variety, and we would probably pay for those, including that into the plan, where again, I'm going to get that 75% reimbursement for the majority of the things that I'm doing, pay for that almond and olive tree, and so he would get that benefit. We're working on his yard. He doesn't have time. He works and works and works, and he also works really late, so it's harder to do yard work when you're a graveyard worker or close to it. All of these different things will make this community more viable for both partners, and also another partner across the street is interested in perhaps joining us with this endeavor as well. So that would really be amazing to, in a 1/4 of a year, already have started with 3 different plots within this little neighborhood, moving towards what I call, and many people call, a food forest. That's something that really does supply your needs. And one of the best things about food forest is you spend about 10 years really putting in all this work, digging up all these structures, introducing all of the perennials and the trees, keeping the trees safe from the deer, because we do have deer that roam our streets. I had a whole herd of deer Christmas Eve. It was really cute. 9 of them up the street from us a ways. And so all of these different things will, and I lost my train of thought there. Oh, be increased the more space becomes a part of that. The trees actually do better for having other trees that they can communicate with in the soil, the fungi that is in the soil that carries the messages of the plants. Can you please go upstairs? Thank you. And so all of these things will increase the health and productivity of the plants on this particular plot. Community is just good in so many ways, right? And so that's what collectively rewilding really is all about. Doing this together as individuals, I am sure that they will have quite different ideas of what their overall plots will look like compared to what I'm doing here. And yet, if we work together to increase each of our production levels, it is so amazing what can be done in a relatively small area. 3 on the semi-larger side, they're under a quarter acre plot. Perhaps these other two are, but they have so much housing structure on them that the lot is still less than maybe some quarter acre lots, right? However, having 3 plots that are nearly a quarter acre size of growing space is much better than 1, right? It'll really increase the health of this entire neighborhood, the soil and all of that, the more people participate. So continuing back on here, we also intend to have quail. They won't be this year. We're putting in the structures this year, doing as much gardening as we'll be able to, considering the fact that we will be digging out here, some mild digging along the corner, digging out here, and mild digging here, with the final big addition that we'll be adding in a sunken garden over here in our mostly east facing. However, it is right between the 2 houses and there are some trees there. It gets almost no sunlight. It is almost 100% shade. So placing this sunken garden where this half will get a little bit, this will get a little bit less, and then almost no sunlight will increase even more the water retention. A sunken garden is another way to increase water retention in not only the actual bed of the sunken garden itself, but the surrounding area, which we're increasing by adding a surrounding berm and swale to the outside edge, most likely. That's something that I'll play with as we're actually doing it, whether we would like to put the swale to the inside of the sunken garden or to the outside. It'll probably have a lot to do with how it feels as the space is coming together, whether we feel like it would be better to have a little bit more walking area that doesn't have a dip, where it would be better internally, or we want to increase how much that affects the surrounding area by putting the swale to the outer side. Inside that sunken garden, you not only increase the water retention, you also create this really neat niche or micro niche there that is warmer in the winter and cooler in the summer. Super benefit to all of the things that we're doing within this overall garden. We are actually in 6B, 7A. We moved just 1 valley over, and yet we went up half a step in the growing zone. I was already able to keep some mints and thymes alive through the winter season at the last house in some niche areas on the property that we were renting. This house, I should almost be guaranteed to be able to overwinter some mint, some thyme, perhaps even rosemary. It's an evergreen in warmer climates. Perhaps we can have some evergreen in our rosemary here instead of having it be more of an annual plant. Really fun. What you can do on a small property. This is not an agricultural property. This is not the size of a farm in our traditional sense of the word. And yet we're going to have quail and eventually rabbits along this southwest facing wall, where we also will need to make sure they have plenty of shade in the summer, but they need to have that warmth in the winter, in addition to additional warmth that we'll be probably providing within their structures. Having quail and rabbits along with all of these different fruits and vegetables, we're increasing that by adding on in our side yard and our front yard, as well as on that front porch, as I mentioned, turning that into a greenhouse. This very small property is going to produce a tremendous amount of produce and even some eggs and rabbit meat and quail meat. With the rabbits also, perhaps I have to find out if Angora rabbits also are good for meat. Otherwise, my husband and I may go to battle over what kind of rabbits we get. I'll definitely let you guys know all of the details in our decision-making process about that if it does come down to needing to pick a rabbit other than Angora. However, I haven't looked into it very much yet, because that will be, again, this is a battle that my husband and I are going over. The quail will not be this year. They will be next year. And I believe it would be better to wait one more year to do the rabbits. He wants to bring them all in. He wanted to get them yesterday, right? So it's a constant decision-making process when you have all of these elements. Not only will we have our own family, our daughters contributing as well. We have 2 neighbors that are already interested, and their contributions will affect what we choose over here, as well as what they choose for over there. So there is a big part of planning involved, and that's why we start early here. We don't want to wait, because it is so much fun, in my opinion, and there are a lot of elements involved, especially when you're trying to involve others, or if you do have a larger property, or even if you have a smaller property and you really want to fit as much as you healthily can into that smaller property, then you really will benefit from starting to plan early, really looking at what plants will benefit the other plants. The smaller the property, the closer all the plants are going to end up being. So all of these different elements come into play when planning your garden. And if you have any questions about what to do with your property in regards to all of this, please always let us know. We would love to help you determine what you would best like to do with your properties, right? All right, so we've covered the garden planners. We've covered what we're going to do here pretty well. It seems like there may have been, the last topic that I wanted to talk to you about is the next step for this garden plan. I've been a little bit stuck. One of the first exercises that I did in reviewing these garden plans for you was working through how much they had overcrowded each of their plots. And so there is a nice little list for you guys as well. And the darkened list, as opposed to the unbolded list, is the one that you really want to go by. This gives you a really good idea of how close you can put your plants. So I will definitely be, how do I want to put this? I'll definitely be incorporating this ideology into planning it on the physical paper. And I will probably increase that list to all of the different vegetables and fruits that I add that weren't contained in their particular list, right? Now, when we came to the second review, it wasn't space that was their problem. It was their choices next to each other. That's where we really found the issue, right? So I am going to still look over a lot of what they had planned for those garden beds. I printed them all. I really wanted to see what they had going on, and I will come in and take a peek at some of the different things that they've done. I like their layout ideas. They just have to be modified, considering that for here, I'm looking at the salsa and tomato sauce garden, and right away I can see that there are green onions mixed in with everything, which they're allelopathic plants, and we put together an entire list of what we're calling combatant plants for you, which they are primarily allelopathic. I haven't found any that are not considered allelopathic yet, even black walnut trees, which I had always known are really bad unless it's been something that's adapted with it along the way to grow next to black walnut trees. You don't want to grow a black walnut tree. You don't want to chop it up and put it in your compost. It will put out a toxin that is bad for the majority of plants. And that's what onions and garlic, I didn't know it, but goldenrod and sour gum. Now, I knew sunflowers were really good at pulling toxins from the soil. I did not know that they were allelopathic. So that was really interesting. Every type of onion that you can think of, green onions, shallots, purple, red, does not matter. Any kind of onion is allelopathic, along with marigolds, calendula, the black walnut trees, sour gum, sunflowers. I had known that eucalyptus wasn't good. I also have another list that includes a couple of other things. I've put it out there, but I'll put it out there again and get it included into this list here for you as well. Really something that's very useful, especially like I said, when you have those tighter spaces, knowing that you don't want to put your nightshades, your potatoes and your tomatoes really close together. For an example, they're both very heavy feeders. Nightshades aren't going to cross-pollinate. You're not going to get a tomato potato, but they are heavy feeders, as are pumpkins. Obviously, again, a pumpkin isn't going to cross-pollinate. Neither one of them really put off anything that's bad for the other, but they're all very heavy feeders. All right, now, I thought it was interesting. Sunflowers are the fourth sister. For those of you who know the three sisters method of Native American gardening, sunflowers really are the fourth sister, according to history, legend, myth, whatever different source one is looking at. And I am going to play with that because is that accurate, or did history lose an important piece and the sunflowers were there but more separated from, not providing direct assistance for the beans to support the beans that you choose, right? And so all of these different things will be what we're playing with here as we go forward. Old with the new, finding the best of both worlds to be the most positive in our interactions with our environment that we can learn how to be as we go along, finding something that will continue to move forward in progress while still looking over those methods from traditional or ancient farming, because they had to survive off of what they were doing. It wasn't a game or an industry or even a monetary source of income. It was their day-to-day world, what they existed on and in every day. And there's so much value there. I do think that we've learned a tremendous amount. However, in eschewing entirely what was learned before the industrialized age, we lose a treasure trove of valuable information. And so many people around the globe are coming to realize that. And of course, there are many cultures that never lost sight of that. And that is what we really need to find a way to talk to each other and share all these insights, share all these methods from the past. There are so many varieties from traditional farming. The buns are an African tradition. The three sisters are an American tradition. And there are so many different ways to achieve health within our environment. Speaking of the Native Americans, again, on the East Coast, they didn't just passively interact with their environment. They very deliberately encouraged natural outcomes for what they more wanted, where they wanted more blueberries, where they wanted less shade, where they wanted more shade, where they wanted to do any of these different kinds of things. If you're not trying to completely modify cutting down trees, building up hills, cutting out mountains, if you're working within the environment, there's still ways to encourage the outcome that we as humans want and not completely alter what's already there. Of course, we've broken so many of these things that now we're coming back from that. However, in coming back, learning about all of these different methodologies, the Native Americans, monks in the Sistine Chapel that have been working the same patches of ground since the 1600s, and yet they don't have the soil depletion that we see here in America, right? And working to find the best pieces that not only work really for anyone, but that work best for us, for our locality, for our specific immediate environment, for our communities, for our garden, and talking about that together. It will not only encourage us and give us so many different ideas, it will create an outer spirit as we're seeing so much more and more around the globe. This is not a new topic. This is not a trend. Worrying about the environment and caring about the environment has been going on in huge numbers since at least the 60s. And there was already talk in the late 1800s about how population growth was going to adversely affect us at some point in the future. So this is not a new topic. And we can really begin to have a better conversation when we accept that nobody has the right answer. Nobody knows how to fix what we broke. We all just have to work together to try to do the best that we each individually can in our own spaces, in our own regions, in our own localities to create a more sustainable and environmentally friendly interaction. Human beings have been changing how the environment structures itself for 50,000 years. We're not going to go back to more simplistic living than what was seen 50,000 years ago. And that's when the megafauna began to slowly start diminishing, megafauna being any animal over 150 pounds. So yes, there are definitely humans that fit the category of megafauna. That is what is replacing the megafauna, tigers, bears, even things like bobcats and deer, elk certainly is a megafauna. These things are being replaced by our megafauna. That is unavoidable if we are going to continue to exist. However, how do we want to change our environment? That's what the conversation needs to be. We can't eradicate our impact. We can more healthily direct our impact. We can think more about the impacts that we're having on our environment. All right, guys, this topic obviously gets me a little excited. I didn't leave a lot of room for any kind of questions. Does anybody have any questions about what we talked about tonight? Any questions about what they want to do with their yard? Anything?
Benny does.
Benny,
He has
is
a
it
couple
in the chat?
questions.
Do we get to hear from you?
Benny, are you going to talk today? He probably has his headset on. His kids are probably talking. I'm not sure. But I can read the question in the chat for you, Sabrina.
Okay, that'd be great. I was looking at it, but you already got it
Okay.
right there in front of you.
It's in regards to, I guess, I guess he wants to, have a garden, and he lives in Massachusetts.
Oh my
Okay.
goodness, for some reason I thought he lived in Arizona, Massachusetts. Okay.
Yeah. And he's like, I would love to have a garden all year round, but I live in Massachusetts. Okay. Does the environment matter if it's underground?
There will definitely be a lengthening no matter what. What you experience in Massachusetts with your Wally Peony would be different than what I experience here. Another way that we didn't have time to talk about today that you can naturally heat a greenhouse without having to pay money, put in heating systems, all these things, is to do your composting inside your greenhouse. Okay, you have to do it correctly or you get that smell, but you want to do it correctly anyway. And a correctly formatted compost pile will not stink. It will smell natural. It will smell earthy. It will not be an offensive odor. And it's constantly creating heat. So definitely, let's just take a quick peek and see what sorts of expectations you would have of a Wally Peony in area that's so heavily affected by the lakes, right? That's pretty heavily affected by the Great Lakes over there. See how that did. Oh, I was hoping for an underground or an overview by the AI. So they're saying in Wisconsin, they didn't find it to be very useful. I'm pretty sure Wisconsin is quite a bit colder than Massachusetts, but I think you guys are relatively. Let's see, let's take that to Gemini. All right, so this is one of the options that are out there for free AI interaction. I really do like Gemini. I have other services through Google to where now I do have the advanced Gemini. I had a lot of success with the free Gemini. All right. Now, let's get in here and see what Gemini has to say. When you're working with AI, you want to try to be as literal and specific as possible. Normally, I would read as I'm typing, but this is a relatively complicated question in the sense that I need to also make sure that Gemini is following what I'm asking. Okay. Collectively Rewilding has a member in Massachusetts who is interested in utilizing a Wally-Pini. And then I clarified what a Wally-Pini is. It's something that's definitely out there, and I would imagine that Gemini's already referenced it. However, it is not a very commonly talked about topic. All right. And then would like, yes, okay, who is interested in utilizing a Wally-Pini and would like to know how much that utilization will enhance his growing season. Can you please provide a detailed breakdown of what he will likely experience? So it's going to allow you to start your seeds earlier, and it will protect from the frost simply by creating that barrier, which is already big. They're letting you know that there may be some need for heating, reduced heating costs. So in a colder climate like that, it's quite likely that you will need to provide some sort of heat. They're not necessarily going to talk about composting, but that is one way to provide heat, and then you'd have to play with it to see if you would need additional heat or if that would provide enough for what you would want to accomplish. If you want to grow things like lettuces in the middle of a winter, much different than trying to do something like I would like to do here and keep a lemon tree alive year round in our greenhouse on the front, and in the Wally-Pini in the back, having an avocado tree or two, keeping them very small, right? You can keep your trees very small by pruning with care and deliberation, with the idea of keeping that in the size fitting the structure. Lemon trees have a dwarf variety already, so that makes it a lot easier. The avocado trees, not so much. So that's where you have to really work with the tree and with the space that you have, but it definitely can be done. You may not be able to do that in Massachusetts unless you want to provide a different heating source, right? Again, digging down, it's going to improve that moisture retention. You are creating at least somewhat of a barrier. Bugs are still going to be getting in and out, but not quite as much. So it's another way of lowering the amounts of pests that you may deal with. Keeping in mind, though, some things prey on areas that are like greenhouse, like powdery mildew and, oh goodness, there's a certain sort of spider that a spider mite. Don't quote me, but I believe, and they really will prey on indoor and greenhouse plants. You've got to be aware of that, right? Earlier spring starts, extended fall harvest. So that probably, again, is pointing towards needing some sort of heat source to have full year-round gardening. Good sun exposure, preferably south-facing, as we've already talked about a little bit. Getting that proper construction, depending on what you're going to do, whether you're going to try to reclaim things. Of course, that will be needing even more consideration, right? Making sure that old wood has been properly sealed, that it's meeting each other and sealed around each window frame, all of these different pieces. It's the more complicated that you make it, the more you have to really think about what you're doing. All right. This is also something they're going to let you know. You really want to look at your design, location, and the climate conditions. That's what we approached Gemini about, but they always want to put those disclaimers out, right? But yes, your design is definitely something that I would be doing research in your area, talking to as many different garden associations as you can find within your state or any areas that are closer to you in other states. The closer, the better, of course, but you may have to extend it out. As I said, it's not the most common practice. It is a little bit, it's a little bit unknown even, right? And so it's an excellent piece and it will help you out in Massachusetts. But for true year-round gardening, I would start with trying the compost and see if that's going to provide enough heat for what you want. If not, you'll need to look at some different options. Of course, they talk about solar. There's problems with that. There's also wind. I would guess you have a lot of wind. There are problems with that as well, but there are different things out there to try to minimize those costs. And you can actually do some wind generation and capture yourself with a little bit of knowledge. And also when you're starting to plug everything together, you've got to make sure to follow the codes in your state, if you need to have it inspected, all of these different pieces. But there are ways to actually take and create small wind turbines on your property. I would like to have a few here, as well as solar, though I really don't like solar. Everybody's pushing it and it's kind of out there, and we don't always have wind here. So I'll have some solar with hopefully much more wind generation focus, as well as exploring some further things within the water actually inside your house. And so that would be if we're here on this property into more like 7 or 10 years. Otherwise, we'll look at that in new building when we purchase an agricultural property. There's so many ways to generate alternative energy. All right, did that answer your question there? Benny, did you feel pretty good about what the options for you as far as being in a colder region, even then here in Utah?
Yes, he said yes.
Excellent. Were there any other questions, Miss Tammy?
No. Oh no, Frank is saying cool stuff in the chat. Yeah, no, I don't think he has any questions.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we love that people are finding good things to say, right? It really is amazing and so much fun, and there's really so much going on. We have so much to talk about. I could have talked for hours about this, how we'll introduce at least one element of the fungi that communicates in the soil as we're healing this soil here in the back that's just barely got any life to it at all. It's basically about dirt as well, meaning that it is not classified as soil. It's not harboring any life. It's essentially dead matter or dirt, not soil. And we have a lot of work to do, and you guys will get to hear about all of that as we go through. This being the most preliminary stages, right? You're researching and planning. And so now the next stage is to transfer the actual, oh no, this is where I want to be, the actual plants into this mapping here. And my brain is just stalling. I'm having a really hard time. I don't just have raised beds. So I'm having a little bit of a hard time deciding what I want to do. And when I saw that first for-cost garden planning site, I really felt like whether I get that or a different one, if there's something better, that's going to help me a lot because it's not about drawing it down. I can kind of move it around and put in different pathways and play with it a little more readily than I can when I'm doing it by hand. I want the hand variation. That's very helpful to me. It's helpful to any human. Our brains access deeper elements within our brains, bigger areas. They light up more, even in areas where they are accessed when we're looking at the screen. However, there are things that we can do on a screen to manipulate things quickly and cleanly that then we can make a finalized plan here and take to our paper so that our brain really internalizes all that information. We're accessing it through so many different points, doing all the research about each different plant. For instance, here, finding olive trees and almond trees that will do well in 6B to 7A was a little bit challenging. Definitely with the internet, it wasn't the most challenging task in the world, but it took several days worth of research to locate what would be best for this area. And I changed actually several times on each of them as I did more and more research and looked over what the Utah State Extension has, the state extension offices that Tammy Larson is sharing with you throughout the variety of states that she's covered so far. They are amazing, folks. They will help you so much, and you can pay for things like classes and things like that, but you can also get expert advice by calling in and talking to them, establishing a relationship with them, and really looking at what they're offering in your area. All right, and we can cover how to do that in a different lesson. But had a great time with you guys tonight. I hope you all had as much fun as I did. It's just such an engaging topic for me. I can't get enough of it. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll see you next week for Simple Stitches at the same time slot. I'm excited that'll be a lot easier for all of us, I hope. Of course, always let us know when things do and don't work for you, but we will be back again next Monday at 6:30 Pacific, 7:30 Mountain, 8:30 Central, and 9:30 Eastern for Simple Stitches. Bye, everybody. See you next week.
I'll see you later, alligator.
Yes, you will. Thank you, guys.
After a while, crocodile.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you, Tammy. Good night, everybody. Thank you all for showing up, for your questions, Benny. And have a wonderful week.